Administrative Director of the O'Brien Institute for Public Health. Regrets from the scientific directors of the Institute, who couldn't be here today. I'll start by saying that the land we're having the seminar series on is the traditional territories of the Treaty 7 peoples of Southern Alberta and the Métis Nation of Alberta districts 5 and 6. And I will add that there's something special about this time of year. I don't know if it's the angle of the sun or the leaves turning or the Christmas in the air, but there's something that just makes me really appreciate this time of year, the beauty of it. And I will also add that as a part of my commitment to reconciliation, I read a really great book this summer. It's an old book, Thomas King, called Inconvenient Indian. I highly recommend it. And I also recommend our seminar series, this is the first one back this fall, so it's special for us. Welcome, everyone. As I mentioned, our scientific directors, Kirsten Feist is the scientific director. Pam Roach is our deputy director for population health. Paul Rongskley is our associate scientific director of health systems. And Stephen Samus is our Associate Scientific Director of Policy and Partnerships and leads our new Center for Health Policy. None of them could be here, unfortunately, so here I am. But we are all excited to have the seminar series back this fall. And let me remind you that we have kind of two different types in the seminar series. So once a month, the Institute or the Department of CHS, so this series is a partnership between the Institute and the department. We'll try and come up with a panel of your colleagues to lead a discussion on some topic that we think will be very helpful to our members, the department members or the Institute members, for either your research or other academic endeavors. And for those, we shamelessly bring in lunch to try and encourage people to come in person, because we really feel like these in-person interaction and networking is the magic sauce of the Institute and the department. And the other one we call, I never remember the word, supplementary. And that's to take advantage of, serendipitous kind of things. Maybe you have a colleague coming in from out of town and you think your other colleagues here at UC would like to hear about their research. Or maybe you have a new project starting or finishing and you want to do something towards your dissemination plan. So the Institute and department will help with the platform of this series, with the advertising, some help with the AV, that kind of thing, room booking. But then we count on you, the member, to develop the content, host the people, make sure there's bums in chairs to through your own networks, things like that. So yes, those two different brands. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Ethan and his colleagues to introduce themselves and their topic and moderate. So welcome, enjoy.
Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate that. And there are people on my So yeah, thank you for taking time to meet with us. I'm happy to be. I call it back, and I'm glad you reminded me. It's a mixed series between O'Brien and CHS, because I'm a department member for CHS, so I'm fulfilling that. So you can let Fiona know that. Yeah, so I'm here because in general, what we want to do is increase international funding dollars coming to the University of Calgary. And that's only on the strengths of the researchers who are at the university. And we all know that the med school, contributes to a significant portion of that. So the more times that I can be invited here to actually speak about this, I'm very pleased. So I appreciate the opportunity. Do you want to go? Okay, thanks. So I'm just going to give a nod to our team. We'll each get a chance to actually, please. You'll hear all of our voices as we go. It's not just going to be me rambling here. The other thing is, as you have questions, don't save them. throw up a hand and let's address them as they come. If it's something that we're gonna address later on, we'll just let you know. So, yeah, so, Nishan Sharma, I'm the manager for international research partnerships. And I was here for a long time. I worked at W21C for 10 years before this. But then kind of at the same time that Bill Galley left O'Brien to become the VPR, I also moved to main campus. So it was last week, it was 3 years that I've been on main campus in this position. And it's the first time that there has been a manager for international research partnerships in UCI. That's Nicole in the black. So Nicole is our research facilitator for basically everything and was carrying the flag for even Horizon Europe before Cher joined our team. So Cher is the newest member of our team. And then my counterpart, I'm on the research side. On the academic side is Yuli. So you'll hear from Yuli too. We just wanted to give a chance to actually ask some questions about the international office in general. So that's our team. That's how you get a hold of us. The other thing I wanted to mention is we work very closely with the faculty-based research facilitators. So Jenna's team is very familiar with how we work. We work with them all the time. They have somebody dedicated in Mohit who is for Horizon Europe. So there's a lot of, if you're talking to them, you're talking to us too. They know to reach out to us in terms of international. So you don't have to duplicate your messages. This is our website. If you go to UC International under resources, faculty, and staff, we have very lame website. It's very thin. There's not much to it. But the biggest thing is a call to action is if you have questions about anything related to international research, reach out to us. Don't worry about trying to find information on the website. Just, send us an email, pick up the phone, whatever it is, and let's have that conversation. We've styled ourselves more as a white glove service. That's what we want to be. So we want to deal with individuals. You'll notice we don't have a newsletter. You don't see news blasts from us because everybody's research, when it pertains to international, is very nuanced. So there aren't a lot of generalities that, would be useful to everybody. So we don't send out calls like that. We like to work just one-on-one. And right now we have the capacity to do that. So, and we'd like to become overwhelmed with the requests and grow our team. So we're happy to. This was an early slide that we created in terms of introducing what our office actually does and how we actually work. The first thing we had to do was create awareness. Like I said, there was no, when you walked into UC International on main campus before, which not a lot of people do, but we're on the 5th floor of McKinney. There was nobody to talk about research. So now there is a group, and there's 3 of us that are dedicated to that. We also do a lot of liaising with embassies, consulates, trade commissioners, those kind of things. So they let us know about opportunities specific to various countries that are relevant to research that goes on here at UC, and we'd like to pass on that information as we get it. We have developed a couple of tools. Nicole's going to talk about some of the things that we've developed over the last couple of years. And then the other thing is the 3 of us are cross-appointed between UCI and research services. So we have a dual report. So on one side, we now report directly to the president. That's on the UCI side. And on the RSO side, we report to Bill Galley, which is convenient for us since I've worked with him for a long time. So the 2 hands know what the other is doing. So if you have a question about even how is your grant going to be processed, pre-award, post-award, whatever, we can find you the answers. So we're the kind of the shortcut into that black box sometimes it is RSO when you actually put in the grant. Yeah, and this is the biggest thing. It's like everybody's used to applying to Tri-Council. Like if most of you are familiar with applying to CIHR or something. Applying to these international funding agencies is a new game. It's similar, but there's always differences. And so what we're there for is to help you figure that out. And we want to learn with you. So, put us to the task by applying to lots of different things. The other teams that we work with across campus include research security. So we like to do a little shout out to them. This is for any research, of course, that you're doing at UC, but it's important to connect with research security. There's lots of things that they can really help you with. And they really do have this philosophy. You shouldn't be afraid of approaching them and hearing like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. They really want to say yes to whatever you want to do, but just do it in a way that you don't get blocked further down the road in terms of your applications. So Martha and her team are here to do everything, risk mitigation plans, to if you're traveling, whatever it is. So we like to give them a shout out to. They're just upstairs on the 6th floor in McKinney too. The other thing that's just come out from them is the strat plan. So I think it's been advertised. Yeah, people have seen something. Yeah, so strat is really just the sensitive technologies and how to share them and things to be aware of. So that's something that you should talk to them about. And we go on. We don't need to. So, okay. So
all right, I'm gonna be talking about my favorite tool, iFarm. It stands for International Funding and Research Matching. This tool has been developed for the past 4 years now. This is our second version. There's over 2,000 websites with very niche grants inside iFarm that I constantly update as well. And when I get a consult from you guys, then I would add your name to it and your email, and it'll bring up all your keywords based on the research that you're doing on the profile that you would have on your UCalgary. Or if I can't find those specific keywords, I also have consults with you guys, so then I can update and figure out what would be the best matches for the funding opportunities and the countries that you're working with. So usually you would reach out to me or Nishan and I would take the consult. I would share these type of questionnaires, figuring out what are your target countries, participating institutions, the desired amount that you would like, is it academic, and then a brief overview of your project. And usually there's a little bit more questions to this questionnaire that I will share over email so that you also have records of what you have shared with me. And then I go on my own to search through iFarm, all these niche grants that could be offered through Australia, through New Zealand, whatever I can find based on your research project. Sometimes they're not specific, sometimes they're broad, but it fits within the field of medicine or engineering. So then therefore you can apply. And sometimes you don't even have to be in that specific country. You can apply internationally in your own country.
just something to add about iFarm. First question I get, how do I get access to that tool? And how do I do my searches? You don't have to. We'll do it for you. And then we'll repeat it too for you. So the idea is talk to us. We put you in the list and then it'll repeatedly do the searches for you. If you get a hit, then we'll send it to you. We originally were going to design the tool to be outward facing, but there were just so many complications with logins, keeping it secure and that kind of stuff. We decided to just keep it internal, and we also have the person power right now.
Yeah, so, and then it's my fun little toy that I get to serve with you guys.
And you don't have to have the answers to all these questions, but the more specificity you give us, better answers we can find.
I have professors sometimes come to me and they don't have an idea, they just have an idea of what their project could potentially be. So then I say, give me your keywords. What is the main area that you're focusing on? Because sometimes when you're a researcher, you have different topics that you like to focus on. So what is your current topic you would like to focus on? And then I go from there.
So do you already need to have like collaborators in other countries to be searching this and?
No, you don't need to have, no.
No, we'll help you
It's
find
your
out.
idea and you want to do it internationally. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that's where it's helped to narrow down. If you wanted to, say, I want to work with your partners in Europe or Japan, whatever it is, you let us know. And then we have a database and there's ways for us to find partners. It doesn't even have to be with an affiliated university.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we also have our research database tool where I can find UCalgary collaborators. It's a really great tool because then I can figure out the topic you're working on, and if you're working on this big project, for example, in Japan, and you want someone in UCalgary to support you, then that's what I can search that person for you, or the many individuals that you've required to build your team for that certain application or grant. We do ask for your profile to be up to date, so you can always go to profiles.ucalgary.ca to update your profile so that we know some profiles are not updated, so then I have the wrong stream of what you're working on. So then if they're up to date, then I can take a look and see which collaborators I can find within the UCalgary community.
Question?
Yes, so I didn't already mention this, the consult questionnaire, is that like a tool on the website or is that?
No, the consult questionnaire is actually the questions that I bring and I ask you while we're meeting. We usually do a meeting for an hour to half an hour. And then once that is complete, I also reshare the questionnaire so that you can fill it out, so that it stays in record what you have shared with me and what I am responding with the results that I'm providing to you.
Another question we get is, can I have access to the researcher database? Because we created it because people generally know the people in their department, maybe the faculty, almost never people in other faculties. So we can do a keyword search and find you somebody who might be able to collaborate with you on campus to do your, there was no tool to do this before. So
Yeah.
that's what that is. It's also inward facing, but we're happy to do the search for you. And do introductions. You're not forced to work with
Yeah.
somebody, but we'll give you a profile of somebody, let's say in faculty of science or biomedical engineering or something, and you know,
Yeah.
do an intro and say, hey, you know, maybe there's a lab you can go to together.
Yeah, more like baby steps. We try to, if you want to get in contact with the collaborator, then we will set up a meeting and we'll be present to kind of make the interview or the meeting flow. These are some of the examples of the grants that I also share that are part of our office. So we have the BPR Colleges grant, which is that deadlines are 3 times a year. And it's for defined early research. We have our transdisciplinary connector grant, which is usually to foster new connections. And our international research partnership workshop grant is more to initiate or advance new projects that you're working on. We also have our UCalgary Visiting Scholars Program. Usually it requires a nomination prior to the arrival of the professor coming over. You can either do 1 week, 2 weeks, or long-term. And if you're gonna do long-term, we ask for research and teaching programs to be hosted at the university. That will benefit the University of Calgary and all the research purposes.
Sorry, can I bother you to go back one slide?
Yeah. For sure.
You don't have these slides? I have never given you these slides. No.
I will be sharing the slides after this. And as you probably are aware, I also, if there's student mobility involved, then we have MyTags for a well-defined early stage research. And then Accelerate for postdoc and supervising professor, which is usually helpful. And yeah, that's about it for me. And then,
That's just to remind you that
yeah,
if you have students in mind for whatever program you're putting together, those are specific to international, like
Yeah.
that they'll work for international.
specifically, yeah.
We don't do any, we just tell you to go to my tags.
Yeah.
We don't actually.
Yeah, we don't actually offer it to students. We just say, like, if you're looking for student mobility, here you go.
But those guys are, and.
They're usually very responsive if you talk to them over email for my tag.
And the money for the visiting scholars, is that for their, to support them to come over?
Yes, to support them coming over.
Living expenses.
Yeah,
Travel
living
expense, living
expenses
expense.
Yeah. for 6 months, and then you have to start the money, the uses of the money right away as soon as they land.
That's a new program, just started last year.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna present you the eggs. Yeah.
So good morning, everyone. So I am not the main show, so I won't take up too much of your time. But I did want to kind of give you an opportunity to learn a little bit more about University of Calgary International and kind of beyond the research space, some of the other supports and resources that we're able to offer to you as well. So the next slide outlines kind of like the three main buckets of University of Calgary International. So again, the research side is my colleagues Nisha, Nicole, and Cher, and then the rest of it in terms of international relations and academic is mostly me and my colleagues and my team that kind of oversee these particular areas. So in terms of the international relations space, like we are very much kind of like that first point of contact. So when it comes to any sorts of partnerships, as well as any sorts of opportunities that exist. So our team in particular can evaluate various partnership requests that we receive or that you receive. So if you want to know, like, you know, should we be partnering with this institution? Like, is this, you know, an area that might be of alignment? Our team can certainly take a look at that. We can analyze it, we can research it, we can provide you with the details as well as the recommendations. And then we can also provide you with a comprehensive idea of what sorts of background does UCalgary have with that institution or what other faculties are kind of working within that space as well. So we can certainly provide you with that information. My team is also responsible for any sort of income delegations that come in. So if we do have requests from visitors, then it's our team that will evaluate that particular opportunity. We do have a visitor request form as part of our online system, so they can tell us who's coming, who do they want to meet with, what is it that they want to talk about, and our team will again liaise with those people in order to determine whether this is a visit that we would like to host, and then whether there's availability and interest on the UCalgary side in order to welcome these visitors accordingly. We also do strategic missions. So for our executive leadership team, for the president's office, we will make recommendations in terms of potentially what countries they should be going to, who should they be meeting with, and then we will organize all the various aspects of that with whether it be setting up the meetings, whether it be creating the briefing documents, providing the background and context, suggestions, key messages that they should be talking about while they're on the ground, and just ensuring appropriate follow-up for those particular pieces as well. As Nisha alluded to earlier, we're also the main contact for any sort of diplomatic community that has that kind of international lens, as well as our Calgary Consular Corps. So we do ensure that that is a relationship that UCalgary has a very strong partnership with, just to ensure that, you know, they're aware of the opportunities that are available here and can promote that to their home countries and vice versa as well. In terms of the institutional repository, so again, we do have a system that tracks literally every single international activity that has ever taken place at the institution as best as we can. So this can be incoming visits, this could be active agreements, in-prep agreements, as well as expired agreements. So we know who are our active partners and who are our former partners. We also track information surrounding any sort of institutional events that we've attended, any of our faculty that have gone overseas and met with various people. What did they talk about? Who did they meet with? What were kind of the outcomes of that? So if you're ever interested in terms of, you know, what our past relationship with certain institutions are, or kind of what our engagement has been with specific countries, our team can certainly provide you with that information as well. And then international affairs and cultural protocols. So in terms of this, like we obviously have to keep up to date in terms of what kind of geopolitical situations are happening, what potentially can put our institution at reputational risk. And we continue to constantly monitor that so that we can make appropriate recommendations moving forward. But also, we also provide cultural protocols. So again, if you are hosting visitors or if you have, you know, certain people that you're interacting with, or if you're visiting abroad, we can certainly provide you a lot of information surrounding that too. So whether it be in terms of appropriate contact, whether it be in terms of like appropriate gifts, whether it be in terms of institutional profiles, if you're going to be visiting a certain institution, we can give you information about the institution itself. But again, in terms of what UCalgary linkages there has been on the academic side, research side, and you know, all the information that I'm looking for in there. So we are very much kind of like that relationship, like repository in terms of everything international relations. From there, kind of based on like the introductions that we do make and the various alignment connections that we've made through the international relations piece, we do also kind of oversee the academic piece in terms of if you're wanting to formalize a partnership. So you want to actually have an agreement with a particular institution in order to pursue, you know, funding or activity of some sort. It's our team that oversees that too. So we have a form that you can kind of fill out for any sort of initiating new relationships, and we will help you with that form. We will negotiate like with the partner in terms of that agreement. We will acquire the signatures and ensure that we go through the appropriate steps in order to formalize that particular agreement. And then in terms of some of these other pieces, it's very much like if there's like any sort of customized training that you're doing in terms of like a course that you're already delivering or a program or workshop that you're already delivering, that there may be, you know, opportunities to expand that beyond the UCalgary space. We can certainly help in terms of identifying potential other areas that might be of interest, or if there is like requests for customized training that potentially might reach out to you as well to kind of see if that's an opportunity you might be interested in. In terms of any sort of exchange collaborations, a global learning team used to also be part of a UCI. So in terms of any opportunities to collaborate, whether it be in terms of, you know, connecting with another faculty member that's teaching a course, wanting to kind of guest lecturers, or like any sort of faculty-led group study program. If you want to take a cohort of students over to another institution or another country and have them kind of gain credit and experience through that, whether it be any sort of like joint kind of like student projects that you want to create, that's something that our team can also support, whether it be kind of making the introductions or, you know, customizing your curriculum in order to kind of meet those needs accordingly. So that in a nutshell is kind of some of the other services and resources that our team offers within the international relations space as well as the academic space.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so just on that last bit there, so I'm a clinician as well as a clinical education researcher. And I often get requests that are in both spaces, so people from other countries want to come and do some clinical work, and whether it's just shadowing with observerships or more, but in addition, get experience in the academic side. Is that something that we should also be reaching out to you to discuss, or is that kind of, I think it lives between two worlds of Alberta Health and the university?
I don't think it ever hurts, you know, to kind of have that conversation, so that I can kind of explore like what is the opportunity, kind of what is like being proposed.
Right.
And then we can like, again, like we're like the catch-all office for anything international as well. So sometimes like we receive things and then we'll be like, okay, well, actually you should talk to this person, or you should maybe go here, or it may be something that falls within our realm as well. So, you know, just as like a general catch-all, if it's anything international and you have a question about it, then come to us and we can at least like, you know, tell you where to go.
On the clinical side, everything gets trumped by HS, so they have their own people for that kind of stuff, but on the academic side, absolutely.
And you know, you work with the AHS side as well.
What's that?
You guys liaise with the
We did not. No. Probably, I don't know who would actually help them. That's a good question. I don't know. We should find that out. Okay, so we're taking advantage of being invited into the space to talk about another program that we are majorly focusing on now, which is Horizon Europe. Anybody heard of Horizon Europe before? No, everyone has. So Horizon Europe is a program where we're taking it serious enough that we've had 2 dedicated hires at the University of Calgary just to focus on this research program. Share is one of them. Research Services will also be hiring somebody dedicated to processing Horizon Europe grants, because it's very complicated, but it's like the biggest rewards you see in Tri-Council. They're worth it if you do get them. So that we're just gonna talk about this for a little bit. Yeah, we can go on. Great. So the one thing I wanted to emphasize with this slide is that, as I mentioned, it's an effort across the university to support applications to Horizon Europe. So there is a fairly large team that's there ready to answer questions and really help shepherd applications to Horizon Europe. There's the 2 of us in UCI. Nicole used to do the work and can cover everything that we do too, so we don't have capacity. But Research Services, Emma works closely. She was supposed to be here, but it's heavy grant season, so she's pretty busy right now. But there are various components that must be part of the Horizon application, and we have our experts there to answer questions about that. So you have to have They call it gender equality program, not equity. JS there. Some of you might know Jay because she's worked here at the med school. We have a open science, a Vulcan library, and then a consultant, because all publications coming out of Horizon Europe grants have to be open science, including data sets. So there's lots of things that we're learning and we're trying to manage right now. Transdisciplinary, they'll show up and talk about this with us too, and then research security. So there's a whole bunch of people that are behind being able to answer questions about defined Horizon Europe. So what is it? Like I said, it's simply the largest research and innovation program in the world right now. So this is the eighth iteration of this kind of pan-European consortium. Change that because we are officially signed now. But basically what it's doing is putting together calls for proposals. It's not like, I'd like to do this kind of research. Can you give me some money to do it? It's more like, here's the research we want you to do. Can you put together a consortium to actually tackle this problem? If you can, here's the money. So it's more like an RFP process as opposed to an open call for you to explore what you like. But you'll see the topics are broad. They're defined broadly. So often you'll see a space for your research in the calls that you'll see as part of Horizon Europe. So Horizon Europe is aligned with the SDGs. So everybody's seen that before. The total amount of money in the pot when it started in 2021 was 140 billion Canadian dollars. So, and it's actually larger because there's matching funds and those kind of things. So in order to actually become part of this, Canada had to put money in the pot. It took almost 2 years of negotiations to actually say, how is this going to work? Eventually, we did. So on July 3rd, we actually had the final signature to be able to apply as full members of this. And the total amount of money we put in is $147. That doesn't mean that we're capped at winning $147 million to Canada, but it's our contribution. And there are stipulations in the agreement that we signed that if we go over that, then we will actually, the government of Canada will be happy that we've maxed out and they'll put more money in the pot. If we don't get that, if we don't reach $147 million of money being won back to Canada, they're going to keep it. So we want to be competitive. And we'll talk about some of the things that are in place. Some of you might have heard about Horizon 2020, which was the previous version of this. This gives you some idea of how the scale has changed. There was 77 billion euros in that budget. But over the 6 years, there were 30,000 proposals sent in to that. But they've made some improvements based on what Horizon 2020 was. There was complaints about not getting enough feedback on the proposals, those kind of things. So that's what's all worked into Horizon here. So what has changed? We are now, for all intents and purposes, a European country. So we have a status where we apply as an equal now. So these are the three big things. First is that you can have a lead for a program based in Canada. You don't have to have a European, they don't have to be based in Europe. Second, we count, you have to have at least 3 countries in any application to Horizon Europe, and we count as one of those 3. Before, we were not an associated country. So we could be part of the project, but we had to get internal Canadian funding to say, this is what our contribution is going to be. There was no money flowing from Horizon Europe, from Europe to Canada in Horizon 2020. That's what's changed. So the money can flow here directly because we count as 2 countries. And then the other thing is we can hold the account with the money can be here in Canada. So we don't have to have it funnel through anything else. Horizon Europe will transfer funds directly to the University of Calgary. So that's yeah. So the other thing to note is that there are other countries that are not like core part of the of Europe that have status to apply to these. So if you have partners or interested in these other countries, then they're part of Horizon Hero 2. And they'll count as one of the 3 countries. But you'll see other countries are applying. So the first one to actually apply and successfully become part of it outside of the European Union was New Zealand. So they're about a year ahead of us. Canada is second into the game. South Korea and Japan are almost there. So there are other countries that are saying, we want to be part of this. We're going to put money into the pool. We want to be counted as an associate country. I think that's going to be the model going forward now. The other thing that's important to note here is that every single country listed, the 80 odd countries that are listed as low and middle income, they can automatically be part of any consortium. And they're encouraging that because the idea is that these are global problems. You're not trying to isolate them by borders. You want to share the knowledge. Even if you don't have the capacity to do the research in your country, you can share by the knowledge. That's why it's open science. That's why they want no barriers for countries to participate in this. So, interestingly, the US is not part of this. So they can be part of it, but they have the same status as Canada, the Horizon 2020. They can't hold the funding. They can't be the PI, all those controls. The other thing that I just wanted to know is this, yeah, still, yeah, is that there are calls that specifically ask for Canadian participation. So you'll see maybe something associated with the Arctic. It makes no sense to do a, put money forward for research that involves the Arctic that doesn't involve Canada. Water research, but even ones that aren't necessarily Canadian. When you first think about it, they'll say you need to have a Canadian institute as part of this proposal. So that's a way, and we do get queries all the time now, and we're seeing them. There's various networks that we're part of saying, hey, we need a Canadian on this. Do you have somebody at your university that wants to be part of this proposal? So yeah. So
thank you, Nishan. So I'll just take over from here for a little bit. So these are what they call the different types of actions or types of projects in Horizon Europe. The most high yield one, shall we say, is research and innovation action, the RIA. So where the EU would cover up to 100% of the whole project cost. The other innovative action is IA, which the EU funding would cover essentially 70%. That essentially means that the industry partners would kind of put the bill for the remaining 30%. So the other action is coordination and support. That's us to improve cooperation among EU countries. And for this, again, the EU funding covers 100% of the costs. The co-fund action, this is like a split between 30 and 70% again. There are more details about this in the program guides, in the links. So essentially the actions are tied to the project's technology readiness levels or TRLs. This would be found in the individual calls funding criteria. So you would have to see where the TRL is and kind of it is tagged in the objectives of the project. And if it falls within any one of these actions, then the project is eligible for the corresponding amount of funding. So these are the basic pillars. I'm also looking at pillar 2 and all the clusters in there. Everything else is pretty much similar with pillar 1, related to researcher mobility, and then pillar 3 is more innovation focused. But so Horizon Europe as a program is very cross-cutting, so there are no clear demarcations. But for Canada's association, we are mostly focusing on pillar 2 and the clusters and mission areas that are aligned with those. So as I said earlier, pillar 1 is roughly around 25 billion euros, and researchers can apply via the Maurice Curie fellowships or through MyTax. And researchers can also act as partners in consortia for pillar 2. So that's where we talked about the consortia part. There are some criteria which countries one or two have to be a member state, and Canada is also considered as a member state, so they can lead the projects. For pillar 3, everything stays the same as was for before. So for pillar one, there are different kinds of grants. The startup grant, with certain criteria for, after PhD level, and the consolidated grant, and then the synergy grant. With different levels of researchers and funding and durations. So this one is, again, open as it was for before.
So basically, pillar one is about going and doing research in somebody else's lab when you're training. They're super competitive, but if you get them, they're really well funded. So there aren't that many in Canada. Actually, right now, last year, there was something like 20 odd scattered across the country. So they're competitive, but if you want to consider going after them, we can help you now.
So this is again a little snapshot of the different themes of the pillars, focusing on health, which is where a lot of really would be interested in. Culture, creativity, civil security, digital space, and climate, energy, and food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment. Again, there are lots of cross-cutting themes like circular economy and which can kind of tie in other disciplines, which is kind of the point of Horizon applications, to work with different disciplines. And usually the calls are very expansive, and there's lots of requirements, and it usually requires an average 5 to 12 member consortia, even though the minimum might say 3, but there would be a fair bit of collaboration expected across different partners. So this is something new that came up in missions for Horizon Europe. This is another way of kind of focusing the themes, as I showed earlier, as it showed clusters and the missions. These are more focused and thematic, basically. So there's adaptation to climate, cancer, restoring oceans, climate neutral and smart cities, soil, health, and food. So these missions essentially have specific targets that the consortia are expected to achieve, let's say by 2030 or 2035, etc. We can talk more about that later. This is again an elaboration of the different clusters and the themes within those pillars.
So basically what this is that there are already groups together in Europe that around specific title groups that are all part of Horizon Europe. So they have clusters ready to join. So if you see things that are relevant to what you do, there's a group to join. So you don't have to take the time to build a consortium. So it's pretty advantageous to find these kind of groups associated with them. We can help you find them.
So what can we do? We can help you with the funding and tenders portal. It's pretty elaborate. Lots of links. It's a bird's nest sometimes, so there's lots of stuff happening in there, but we can kind of help you navigate it, and you can search for suitable calls that align with your research areas, and also with partners. If you don't have any in mind, or if you're thinking about a certain theme, we can help with that, like look for different partners in different areas. There's a database that has successful partners that have been funded previously for Horizon programs. And we can help you reach out to them also if they're willing to help partake in your in the call with you. So there's always opportunities for that. They've opened a couple of new portals too for industry partners. We can touch on that later. So a couple of challenges. Obviously, it's super competitive, but still, I think Canada's not doing that bad considering the competitiveness in previous programs. So the deadlines are usually coming in pretty fast and there's not much headway. The expectation is probably that you already have something in mind and you already have some connections and you just want to bring everybody in together and kind of get it going and submit the application, because building the consortium, that's the 2/3 of the time. The rest of the stuff usually takes, as per our discussions with others, maybe 1/3 of the time. So
Can I ask, are the opportunities are offered kind of one-offs, or do they ever like if you see an opportunity and it's not long enough for you to get ready, is there gonna be something similar coming up?
Yeah, it depends on like if it's, especially if it's something general like health or climate change. There'll be other calls that you'll see as relevant. Some are super specific. And yeah, you have to. So basically, the biggest challenge here is that they're not waiting for teams to do the storming and warming phases. They want collaborators who are, the call will come up usually minimum 4 or maximum 4 to 5 months in advance. They're big calls, but if you have your team ready, then that's fine. But if you're gonna take 3 or 4 months to get your team ready, then there's a lot of pressure. But we want to help you with that phase too. If you do want to do it, we're there to help. That's what our. Sorry, I just. Yeah, well, we'll just speed up a little bit here.
So these are a couple of the portals that I was talking about. Cordis, you can get involved in Horizon, maybe if you have time to be an expert reviewer. That also gives you an insight into what the projects are and what kind of projects they're doing and how to evaluate those projects. And maybe later you can even be asked to kind of help with developing those proposals for the calls. So it's kind of a gateway into the system to kind of see what's happening under the microscope. So the REA, or the European Research Executive Agency, holds regular information sessions, and there's some nice links that talk about model proposals and how to prepare a successful grant for Horizon.
Basically, the slide deck's gonna have the links to all these things about how to apply and that kind of stuff. Shortcut it, just come to us, right? And we'll find those answers. We want to get really good at answering those questions for you and building up our own knowledge database about this. So challenge us to do the work for you in terms of this. The steps for applying are pretty straightforward, right? We can help you with putting your proposals together at the beginning in terms of the groups, and then getting you partners, but then you guys gotta write the grants. So the timeline's usually about, by the time you find out and get the money, be about anywhere from 9 to 12 months. Right? Typical of a large grant here. I'm just gonna kind of rip through these things. So more than universities can be part of this. So you can see a list here, and that's not an exhaustive list, but if you have some other group like an NGO or something you want to work with, they'll count this as a potential organization to work with. I mentioned the open science requirements. We have experts on campus to help you navigate that. It's tricky, right? Because you're not forced to do that. You are forced through Horizon Europe to have your publications in an open science journal and your data sets really available for other people to examine. So of course, anonymize that kind of stuff. That's our biggest challenge right now. And RSO is really working on how we can help researchers here meet those requirements. I think we can flip through the open science ones. Yeah, research security I already mentioned. There is a requirement for each of the teams applying to Horizon Europe to have gender balance, which is awesome. But there's a certain state, we're actually working on a general statement for the people at the University of Calgary to adhere to this. But if you're having challenges, and it is more of a challenge in other faculties to do this, then it's something to consider as you put your consortium together. Yeah, lots of application reports. This is more for maybe somebody in your lab who wants to, you're gonna use to put your applications together. This kind of information might be useful, but again, we'd like to work with the people in your team if they have questions about putting together the application. There are websites with more specific information about the programs involved in the largest clusters. So there's a specific website for health, and so if you click on that, that's actually a very useful link, especially for the people in this room. But if there are other ones that you're interested in, just find these sites. Again, it's in the slide deck. Do's and don'ts, we can skip that. We're working on the website. That's one of Sheriff's jobs. So we're gonna put that together. The other thing is we work with the national points of contact. So the government of Canada through ISET actually put together a large team to help Canadian institutions apply for resident. So these people are here to help answer questions about the grants that you might want to go after. If you want to contact them, that's their information, but what we ask is just CC us so we can help continue the conversation. We've met with Tamara before, and then there's various people set to help you with the specific cluster specific supports. So governments behind this too, they really want this to happen.
They're usually very responsive. They,
Yeah.
they reply right away. I've contacted them several times already.
Yeah, they're pretty fast. Yeah, the other thing that we can do, and we've tried this a couple times, is actually host a launch session. So if you want to bring together a group and actually start to brainstorm and say, what is this gonna look like? We'll actually bring our team to you and say, let's answer questions as they come up. So we've tried this model with Schulich a couple times. Maybe it was a bit early days, but it's something that we can consider. So if you really want to do this, call us and then we'll work with your team to actually get an application started. Yeah, so the rest of it was just present slides from RSO and those kind of things. So I think we wrapped up there and kind of leave room for some questions, comments, or anything like that. But yeah, we'd like to hear from you now.
Did you say we've had Canadian successful applicants with this or not yet?
I don't know about the Canadian ones. UFC has not yet. We have put in 7.
Okay.
And none of them been successful, but not surprising because we weren't the lead on most of them. And then the other thing is it's just early days of us trying to figure this out. So New Zealand is about a year ahead of us and they've landed 14, but they put in quite a few applications. So they have an engine just like that, but it's more at the national level.
Like, can you give an example of something that be successful for a program?
Something like a successful application.
Or what is an example of something that someone's doing?
Well, the one yesterday that we were talking about, so we were talking to New Zealand yesterday about a group that is looking to wildfire mitigation. So it's a climate disaster when these things happen, release of a lot of carbon, so it's a global problem. Obviously, having a Canadian on the team is going to be useful because we're very prone to it. So there was a call specifically about climate disasters and those kind of things. So,
Natural disaster predictive
Yeah.
modeling, tsunamis, wildfire, volcanoes.
so again, it's a big umbrella, but then usually if that's your area of expertise, you're gonna find the niche. And then they'll ask, and then what we try and do is help work to build a consortium that you get tick all the boxes that they need in terms of, do you have this technology company? Are you covering this? Are you working with these groups and those kind of things? It'll stipulate, those are the people who should be part of the consortium. That's what we're trying.
I was fascinated by the idea of becoming a paid reviewer.
Yeah.
Are there any ins and outs to know about that, like how they pay the universities and consider outside professional activities?
You actually sign up directly just as an individual.
Yeah, that's a volunteer.
So then I think you submit your credentials and choose you. I don't know what your remuneration is. Probably not enough, but
Mhm.
it is a way of learning about,
It's around 200 euros. It depends on the,
Work units.
yeah, it depends on the, how big the application or the applicants that have applied.
And it would look good on your CV.
It
not
does,
bad.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you feel like reading other people's grants and you get paid for it, then there's a way to do that. So, yeah. Any other questions? Anything online? Okay, I think that's it for us. So what we really want you to do is if you're thinking outside of the country in terms of doing research, come and talk to us. That's the bottom. And then we're gonna help you negotiate that. Okay. Thanks for your time.
Nice. Grab lunch if you didn't get one. You know, when I went to the Verizon, before, they got about the money that goes into it, and then, you know, you think, value.